Okay, everybody. So it looks like we can start over. So once again, I wanted to say thanks for joining in and welcome to our webinar. My name is Guy Lifshitz, and I'm one of the strategy execution experts in My Single Point, and I'm glad to see you all in here. Um, Basically, just want to introduce to all of you our presenter today, which is Inon Shield. Inon Shield is the co-founder and CEO at My Single Point. Prior to the foundation of MSP at 2007, Inon has acquired more than a decade of hands-on experience in combining CPM, BI, BPM, PPM disciplines as part of the consultancy services he provided to C-level executives. Inon has a rich experience in handling transformations, change management, and especially in big organizations. Inon is going to describe a little bit more about himself later. As a reminder, we're going to cover a few areas today. The topics that we're going to discuss are such as why do we all decide on strategy, but only 10% of us are actually able to execute it? How leading consulting firms define the pitfalls of strategy execution, practical approach for avoiding the pitfalls of strategy execution, and most importantly, how can the IT take the leading role in making strategy execution a success? I just want to point out that throughout the webinar, we're going to post 3 poll questions, and your answers are going to help us understand the subject better. And if you'd like, we'll send you the results afterwards anonymously so you can see what other people in the industry feel about. In case you'd like, I'll post again in the end of the webinar several materials for your time. And just want a quick update about our next webinar, which is going to be on the 15th of March. It's going to be presented by our CTO, Tomer Yakir, about program governance, how to combine top-down and bottom-down techniques to align strategy. And that's it. So I'm going to pass the torch to Inon. And Inon, you can take over.
Hi everybody, sorry for the technical stuff. We're just going to set it up for a second. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in our webinar. I'll start by saying that I came from the other side, meaning before I started this company, I have been pitching about the role of the IT and how crucial the IT is in transformational processes. Now, as years came by, we got a lot of experience. So what I would like to do today is provide some technical, practical, and things that we could take home from this short webinar. So feel free if you have any, ideas or things that we would like to focus. Please use the chatting and let's make it fun. So Guy, if you could kindly switch to the first slide. So the things that we're going to cover today, Guy is going to switch the slide in a second, is first of all some facts. And we're going to refer to studies conducted by the Harvard Business Review in a blend coming from Deloitte and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, once we understand the drivers of strategy execution, we could deep dive and understand the root causes of failure. Now, I want to do that because once we get that terminology in order, we could understand how we can contribute using our capabilities as IT towards the success of our corporate. Now, there's a lot of debate about the role of the IT. Should we be responsive? Should we be the ones that manage or support the strategy of organization? And we're going to handle that as well. So how do we position ourselves within this process? This is purely a matter of leadership. Afterwards, after we get to that point, we were going to review the aspect of data and the difference that we have between data and insights. And of course, conclude. So if you have any question or things to ask, please feel free to pitch in. Guy, if you can kindly go to the next page. So let's start with the facts. You know, when I was a consultant, I was pitching through intimidations. Everybody's failing, and we don't have to feel, uncomfortable that our, enterprise is different than others. The statistics that we see here are very, very, straightforward. Now, another research that was conducted very recently pitched to 400 global CEOs throughout the globe, and one thing that came at the top of the list is that challenge facing corporate leadership, both in Asia, Europe, and United States, first thing was executional excellence. Now you can refer to your company and ask yourself, is this something of issue? Meaning, if you ask your top management what is crucial, what is the first thing that would like to improve, would it be that part of excellence? Pardon. Now, on top of those gloomy statistics, one of the things that we could see is that this lack of performance resonates with a sum, 10% of the overall budget. This is something that was conducted during these surveys, and it is roughly estimated that for every 1 billion of investment done in EMEA, there's 109 millions that are lost. So this is a dollar figure that we could use when we get this kind of information into our corporate. Guys, you can kindly go to the next page. Now, what we want to do is to cover from the Harvard Review Business about making strategy work. They come up with, after conducting a very nice survey, 5 myths that they shattered. Now, the first one is about the execution equals alignment. Now, when we speak about execution, we usually think about translating strategy into objectives and then cascading those objectives down the organizational hierarchy and measuring its progress. And of course, it's a continuous improvement. And then you reward performance. Now, the amazing information is that most of the organizations have managed to implement the balanced scorecard concept, meaning they have very few key performance indicators. And those very few key performance indicators are well repeated and well communicated in regards to saying them. And people can actually refer to them because it's written everywhere, it's repeated. But it doesn't resonate with the numbers that we saw before. Meaning, if we have the execution and we have alignment, so why do we fail? Now, the figures that smash those myths is quite outstanding. More than 80% of management say that their goals are limited in numbers, though only 9% say they can rely on their colleagues in other functions and units all the time. Meaning, if it's sales on its own as a silo, of course you feel that you have the resources and you have the ability to execute your goals. But it's the guys from the IT that did not deliver, or the guy in the operations that did not deliver, and so on and so forth. So when we speak about execution versus alignment, there's a very nice figure indicating that the way that we do not perform is siloed. Meaning, we know how to execute in our silo, we don't know how to collaborate in a meaningful way between the business units. Now, this is something which resonates again with the same figure of how much do you trust your subcontractor, which is amazing, the same 9%, meaning you trust your fellow peer in the next organizational unit less than you do when you trust your subcontractor. That's an astounding number. Now, when asked to identify the single greatest challenge to executing their company strategy, 30% of those people cited failure to coordinate across units. So this is a quite an astounding number. So what do we need to do in order to make that happen? This is something that we could affect. Communication. Sometimes IT is perceived as the United Nations. It is something that this kind of a body which is not even accused of being disruptive in regards to affecting business. It could be only a barrier. Now, if you come in as an IT and you build a communication channel that enables to de-silo the lack of communication, that could be something that could affect the actual performance, and we'll get to that in the rest of the presentation. Another very nice myth is about execution means sticking to a plan. Now, we've been trained for all those years that if we sit and do our annual planning and set up the budget and we accommodate the resources, then if we don't meet that plan, then something is wrong, something is missing. But you know that the day-to-day, the reality confronts us with things that need to change. Now, that ability to manage change and the agility of the corporate is one of the things that demolishes that myth. It's not about professional and operational excellence. It's not about sticking to the plan and getting the perfect project portfolio management solution implemented. It's not enough. Managing the change is something that is it's unanimous that it is something that it's very hard to handle, change management. Not only that, it's not only enough to be agile and respond to every change, but you need to build some kind of a gating process that would assure that the proper changes are considered well. Now, this is a very fine-tuned line, and one of the nice thing about this survey is that organizations tend not to succeed in that kind of an operation. The third myth about communication equals understanding. What they've done is they've taken 500 companies and they've followed the CEOs in the way that they communicate their strategy. Now, there were CEOs that were very proud of how often, and they have measured how many times the communication was performed towards top management, middle management, and even the employees. But that did not symbolize the understanding of the actual implications of the execution. The next myth is about performance culture. If we're good in our operations, is it enough to make this thing happen? Well, what we found and what we read in this kind of article is that past performance is 2 or 3 times more likely than a track record of collaborations to be rewarded with promotions. Meaning, think of your employees. Who gets promoted? And are you being promoted on regards to your agility, your ability to change things? Because it is perfectly clear that if you want to transform your organization, then you need not stick to the same things that you've done in the past. So if you're rewarded in regards to your past performance and your operational performance, then it's not something that measures your ability to change. So this is something that we should, think about in regards to our culture and the way that we measure our success. And the last myth is about execution should be driven from the top. Now, we have the model of the CEO who is very charismatic and can convey the message and take it to the board level and then reside that in the nice journals. But we know that the actual drivers of our company are the key people that own processes, and their ability to resonate and to accept and to implement the strategy is far more important than to just repeat it. So if you have a process which is top down and it meets the experience of the team, that is something that would promote success. So if you have any issues in regard, questions in regards to those 5 myths, I'll be more than happy to see that in your chatting. So please let me know if you have anything before I go on. Okay, guys, if you can kindly go to the next page. Thank you. So let's go over the hurdles. And some of them are cognitive and soft, but soon I'm going to show you how within the existing tools we can try to engage with those sort of hurdles. Now, this kind of representation comes from the Blue Ocean strategy. The ones that do not know this kind of this book it's highly recommended to read it. It's an approach that is far more modern than that of Norton's of the Balanced Scorecard, and provides another way of approaching execution. Now, the first hurdle is the cognitive one. And as you see, an organization is stuck on the status quo and unwillingness to roll the boat. Now, this could start by top management acknowledgement, kicking this off, and then we'll soon see how the IT could be a partner in order to go over this hurdle. The next hurdle is something that I'm sure will resonate with you all, resource hurdle. We have limited resources, or we don't have the knowledge of where do we have those resources that could make our plan work. It's a matter of skills. It's a matter of, the ability to fine-tune people and make them part of our process. And the greatest shift in strategy, the greater the resources needed to execute it. The next hurdle is about motivational hurdles. Now, people hate change. People are afraid and tired of change. There's change fatigue. And as we have our CEOs replaced every couple of years, we're coming with a new strategy, then that amount of motivational hurdle becomes even far more fierce. Now, our staff is the thing that would make us succeed or fail. So I'm going to engage or think with you what would be the best way for us to handle this kind of a hurdle. The last one is the political hurdle. You have oppositions from powerful vested interest. Nobody likes change. Nobody likes transparency. Nobody likes governance. So we believe, or I believe personally, that using technology, we could change the way people think. We could change the way, data is flowing between the usual parts of the organization. Now, if you put in the right balance of technology that would do that, there's a good chance that we could tilt the chances of our success forward. Any thoughts? Any annotations or chats that you would like to raise? That would be great at this stage. Okay, so we'll do a slide breather so that Guy could pop up the first survey, and we'll get back to our presentation in a second.
All right. Hi everybody. So I'm going to pop up a screen with a question, so you can just fill in the right answer for you. And remember that in the end of the webinar, we're going to send you out the results of the polls anonymously, so you can see the results. And
ladies and gentlemen, so if you could, make do and just fill out the question, that would be great. The first question is about what is the greatest barrier for the success of the strategy execution in your organization?
all right, thanks a lot everybody. We're going to keep up with the presentation.
Okay, so Guy, if you could kindly take us to the next page. Now, let's stick to the same template, having those hurdles in front of us. Guy, can you kindly go to the next page? Okay, thank you. Now, how do we make management more enthusiastic about, that kind of cognitive hurdle? It is, for, I think, past 10 years, I'm trying to pitch about our role in getting disruptive technology inside our organization. I believe that the key for innovation is IT. I believe that today, digitalizing our business is becoming something that it is a matter of leaving or just, losing your business. So when we build up the foundations and the processes that will allow that innovation to grow, and we map those areas, those services, those lines of businesses that accountable people are part of this process, then we could tilt that in order to translate the message and make people aware that we need to change. And people that are not aware and not, usually being presented with a way to change the current situation will remain as such. So I think that the first thing that we could do in our work plan is to make sure that we have the ability to present that. So the next thing is collaboration and communication frameworks. Now, I'm not going to put a finger on specifics, but I could just guess that the amount of transactions and data that go through your organization using WhatsApp is something which is considerable. And I could guess that you have groups of WhatsApp for every project or for every area or line of business or organizational unit in which people collaborate. Now, why is it that so? Why do people go to the outside the organization channels in order to communicate? Can we as IT provide something that will be more structured, more contextual, more insightful, and will encourage the same way of collaboration that people use without any implementation that we enforce or we present to the organization? And we beg that our position is that yes, we could do that. We could actually tilt people in order to communicate in a meaningful way, because there's something that they will gain from that kind of collaboration and communication. So that's the first part, and I believe that through those two actions we could actually affect the management buy-in. Not only management, but not top management, but rather everyone. Now the next hurdle was about the resource hurdle. Now we have everything, guys. We have PPM systems, and we have change management systems, and we have budget management systems. But do we really have complete governance that would allow us to tilt resources from one way to another? Can we on the fly reallocate budgets from one area to another bleeding area that has a lot of value and a lot of influence on our strategy? Do we have the implications ready to understand what would be the consequences of switching people? I could provide you an example of one of the organizations that we all know, which is Apple. I have a very good friend who's a senior executive director in Apple, and I know that his entire team was flown from one continent to another within a week's notice. Why? Because it was clear that that team had the right capabilities and the right ability to do so, and the work that they have been doing in that specific time is less important than an area that was bleeding in regards to performance. And in order to improve their performance, they've reallocated, I'm not talking about tens of people, from one continent to another for a period of 2 months. Now, this is responsiveness that requires a lot of governance. Now, another thing that we've mentioned is change management. Change management is something that would affect strategy, because if we have the proper gated process and the right resource pool of accountability, in which not only do we know for every individual what is his skill and what is his capability, what are our capabilities and availability, but also what kind of accountability does he have in regards to our lines of business. Now, I know that in regards to existing IT solutions, we have the service catalog that was used for different things. But just imagine what would happen if we could provide the same methodology for the organization to manage itself. So that not only the IT governance would be something that would affect our effectiveness and operations. Imagine that we could deliver that to our business. The next aspect is the project portfolio management. Now here the context is a bit wider. When we speak about change management and resource governance, some argue that PPM should offer that within its boundaries. From our experience, PPM tend to stick to the big stones, the big rocks, the big, huge programs. And when you see your strategy execution building blocks, you understand that, let's say 70% in average is not conceived of those huge projects. Changing the way our business works is based on very, very wide areas that denote our portfolio. So if you have an overview of all of those aspects that consume your resources and then consume your capacity, then I think that you're fine with your PPM establishment. Last but not least is our budget. And again, we need to think of a budget in a wider way, in which we could allocate every budget line to a strategic goal. in which we could see what would be the ramification of churning that budget if we see that it's not meeting its predefined strategic goals. Now, you need to think carefully if within your operations those kind of questions are covered. Last but not next on our plate is the motivational hurdle. Now, coming back to the innovation pillar that we've discussed in the beginning, imagine what would happen if an employee has just raised an idea, and that idea got very good sponsorship, and the right accountable person has reviewed that piece of innovation and has allocated budgets because he believes that this is something that would be disruptive and help the corporate meet its goals. Once we do that, and you have the ability to boost decision making, then the funnel of those two first pillars that we believe are basic could boost the way that we drive the organization forward. Now, motivation is something that is driven and is catchy. And if you see one business area that is successful, let's just imagine that that would be the IT. Then imagine how it would resonate on the entire organization. I'll get to that in a second, but I believe that we should be first. The IT should be the right marker for the strategy execution within the organization. Not only driving it forward, not only making sure that we have the proper projects delivered for the business. We should introduce disruptive ideas. We should be the ones that promote and present how we make decisions, how do we prioritize, how do we make our team accountable for what we're doing. And that is only done when you have the right process in place. Now, when I'm talking about process, it's not our classic business process management solutions, the BPM solutions. Those are put in place in order to manage, how do we make our policies run better? How do we reduce our order to activation in the telco? But here I'm talking about process and connecting the dots between areas that usually do not connect. Our budgets, our resources, our projects, our risks. Now, once you put that in place and you set up accountability, then we could really boost the way that we make decisions and consequently the way that we run forward. The last thing, just excuse me for a second, is the political hurdle. Now, political is something that is a double-edged sword. I've met a couple of amazing chief information officers. They did not consider themselves to be technological. They consider themselves to be the right-hand guy for the CEO. And as such, those kind of leadership promoted transparency and were the first to take upon their shoulders the heavy burden of being accused of let's put it this way, being disruptive. And those kind of leadership was rewarded because, again, it was not something that is about managing the budget or doing something for the business. It was about being the first priority and the first piece of information that the CEO would like to receive. I'll pause here for a second. If you have any remarks or things that you'd like me to explain, kindly let me know. Okay, thank you, Guy. So once we've gone through that, we cannot avoid the evolution paradigm, but what we see here is actually the way we perceive the, pardon, Guy just lost the session. The way we perceive the evolution of the IT. We started off by keeping the lights on, working with the infrastructure, making things available. After we've done so, we've grown to the point that we deliver the projects, the main projects that the business requires for us to deliver. I think that in the past years, top CIOs have been opened up to host innovation and introduced and implemented disruptive technologies. And I think that the next step that we should take is to drive change and sponsor execution. I think that the IT, first of all, because we're far more effective than other business units, because we know the consequences of change, and because we own the information, we could make a change that would tilt the success factor of this entire organization. So it's up to us to decide, which kind of figure we would like to take as CIOs. Coming back to the question of what do we do with the existing assets that we have, and is it enough? Now, from our experience, when we approached organizations, most of them had, very good solutions, very good siloed solutions that covered the main areas, pillars of our operations. They had very good CPMs in which balanced scorecard was implemented. They had very good PPM or project management solutions. Sometimes it was down to a bunch of spreadsheets, but they felt good or enough with what they had. Very good budget foundation, managing ERP systems. And of course, one of the areas that are less covered are the parts of resource governance, but let's put it aside, and of course, innovation. Now, our theme is very simple. If you manage to connect the dots and be able to explain what is the context, or what, if we have a strategic goal, which kind of budgets do we have in order to promote that budget? And under that budget line, which kind of projects are clinging or using this kind of budget? And for that specific project, do we have adequate resources, not only budgets? And do we have the right skills? And do we have a clear prioritization of how do we utilize those in order to make this happen? And of course, do we have a change management mechanism in order to make this project still stick to the original objectives, the business objectives that we set for it? If the answer is yes, then you're in a good spot. Now, from our experience, when we got into organizations, one of the first drawbacks or the things that we needed to handle is how do we connect the dots between strategy and operations. And imagine that you could go to every person within your organization and ask him, how is your actual work, your day-to-day work connected with our strategy? Do you know how do you affect, by putting in the extra mile, the bottom line of the organization? So the last thing I would like to discuss in this webinar, and Guy, please let me know if you have any things that people asked us to discuss, is about data. Now, there's a huge difference between data and insights. And from those of you that know what insights means, it's not only about presenting information. It's about making that information contextual and actionable. Meaning, if we have a root cause and a cause and effect model associated with the information, then this is an insight. Now let's try to see what we're doing. We're investing highly in big data, trying to get more information. The common understanding and the common notion for our customers is that one: drowning within the enormous amount of information. And this kind of pushback is reflected in the way that the system that they use spreadsheets, they use PowerPoints. And we should ask ourselves, how do we make use of that enormous amount of information that we're generating? So as we see here in this slide, we're fighting a battle uphill. We have so many changes within our corporates. We have competition, and we have mergers and acquisitions, and we have regulations, and all of those things change our IT landscape. I think that the main challenge, once we have all of those building blocks that we've mentioned in the previous part of this webinar, is how do we make sense of this information? Now, there's not a single answer that would resonate well with all of the corporates. It's so individual, and it's so based on the maturity of the processes and the maturity of the data and the maturity of the consumptions, the people that would acquire that information. But I believe that once you get to that kind of a challenge, that would tilt the success of the IT operations. In order to put that in place, I'm just repeating, I believe, something that we discussed previously: communication, process, connecting the dots in a meaningful way that would be top down and bottom up. meaning not only understanding what we know how to generate, but how do we communicate that in a meaningful way to the people that consume the information, and how would that promote the way they make decisions, and how does change how do we manage change in order to mitigate the amount of influence it has on the reliability of our data. So if you have any things that you would like us to approach, I will be more than happy to approach those now. And the takeaways. I think that we've covered, first of all, what is wrong, and we understand that we're not alone. We have so many organizations in the corporate, in the world, that fail executing strategy. Now, it's not a blunt failure, because people, our organization continue to make money, but not meeting the strategic goals means that the level of growth is not as expected, and then the CEO's life expansion is 2 to 3 years, and it means that once the CEO is changing, then the entire management team is replaced, and again there's another transformation and another new strategy and another thing that pushes the organization back. So meeting strategy means that we have a plan, and we have the establishment, and I believe we should be owning that establishment to run this execution forward. And once we do so, we need to maintain it, and you do that by providing decision makers with valid information, contextual information, insights. So I believe we should lead adoption. I think that we should take the first step forward. We should be the ones, the IT, because we're effective. We are effective. We're more effective than any other business unit, that would set the example and show how strategy can be executed in our small terrain. Afterwards, I believe that we should lead innovation, and we should put in place the right drivers that would make sure that not only good ideas will be presented or even rewarded. Good ideas should get the right budgets. Good ideas should get the right ownership from the accountable people within the operations, and then when it comes to be a product, then it will affect our business performance. It will be disruptive. We should generate effective human communication infrastructure and culture. I think that we, again, by setting an example, could make use of proper communication channels. I'm not getting into tooling with your permission in this discussion, but there are ways in which data and communication could flow without going back to our WhatsApp applications. We should build resource and skill governance over our portfolio management operations. Now, when we meet organizations, their first reaction is, we have a PPM solution in place. Just ask yourself, is this establishment enough in order to manage change? Is it enough so that you could divert resources with understanding the full impact from one place to another, and provide your what-if scenario so that top management would be able to optimize their portfolio in a meaningful way? Provide insights, not only data. We have enough data. We're investing so much money and attention in getting data. We have enough. Let's make sure that the right people get the right insights from that data. That would mean a lot to those people. And of course, proactive. I think that in the past 10 years, and again, I was, hand in hand in working with C-level executives that have done that deed and took responsibility towards pushing their corporates forward. Becoming proactive is not about taking in the demand from our business and making it happen, making those projects count, making this project work on time, on budget, and in quality. That's not enough. We need to become proactive. We need to align and be not only in regards to being responsive, but we need to suggest. We need to trigger, and that would wrap up our perception about this. So once again, thank you so much for accommodating the time, and feel free to turn to us if you have any additional information, or if you would like to get the collateral that we've used as part of our thought leadership. And once again, we have a continuous program of presenting those webinars and we are very proud to having you guys join it and be with us. Thank you so much.